right, Gary. So in the previous episode, we talked about like getting our mindset right around, the storm and what's happening. Today, we've got to talk about, there are two other things we have to really look at hard.
Sure.
The math of our business and the model actually running on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When a shift occurs, you have an M&M problem, right? You got a math challenge, and you have most likely a model challenge.
Okay. Well, let's take those in that order. Like when we say a math challenge, the first thing I go to is like my P&L.
Yes.
But that's not all we mean, right?
No, but that's the first place you go. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to let an uncertain economy create an uncertain economics for you, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first math challenge you have, the first one, is your P&L. It's your income matching your expenses. So the first thing you got to do is you got to cut, shape. Your income your expenses, let's say, has to match your income.
Where you expect your income to go. It's a recession, so we think that's going down. It wouldn't be called that if not. So we now have got to bring down our expenses ahead of that, maybe?
Yeah, it's got to match it. That's all. And, and if you were a startup and you had raised capital, then you've got to slow down your burn rate so you can survive that. Yeah, everything's got to match. You just either that or you have a huge chunk of money and you're just willing to lose it, and that could happen as well.
Yeah, that doesn't usually end well. No. I mean, even companies that rightfully have a burn rate, right? They're in the build phase. If you don't have enough cash for your investors to have confidence that you'll make it, things start to fall apart quickly.
Yeah, that's right.
Key talent will flee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the first issue you have in a shift is your math no longer works, meaning that absolutely your expenses are not in alignment or working for you in the same way that they did before, and you're going to have to go get that figured out as fast as possible.
Well, you've done this a lot of times. When you look at the P&L math, right? Protecting your cash and your cash flow, are there any boxes you're immediately going to check to make sure that part of your finances works? Are there tricks for people to think about?
Yeah, you don't want to cut off anything that helps you. That be careful about that. A lot of people look up and go, and in our industry, it's very common. The first thing they say is, "I'm going to let my coach go."
Right.
Why would you do that? That would, right? You sell your car and drive around in everybody else's car. Don't get rid of the person whose job is to help you get through this.
It's kind of like with the boats taking on water and you're throwing out the life preservers, right? That's the wrong thing to jettison. Don't jettison the stuff that's meant to save you or could save you.
Yeah. So a lot of people, they'll immediately look up and say, "Oh, I'm not using this. Let's get rid of it." When you realize, dude, you should be using that. What are you talking about? That may be one of your problems.
Well, the first thing then is ask the question, what's essential and what's not?
Yeah, that's right.
Not just go through there and just start cutting ruthlessly, because these are the numbers that can get the income and expenses in alignment.
Yeah, that's right. You have a math problem. And your first math problem is that almost guaranteed, because there's just less out there, your expenses aren't working for you the same way that they did. And you're going to have to align that with your income as best as you can. And you need to do that fast.
Another place that CFOs love to cut is lead gen and marketing.
Oh.
And I get that those dollars could be very dumb, right? They weren't smart for whatever market you're in. But again, you've got to have income. So don't cut off your source of income either.
Oh, we'll talk about that in the next episode, but without a doubt, be very careful about that. So what you want to do is quit spending money on anything that doesn't drive growth, so that hopefully you'll have found money that you can use as your starting point around getting your math right, creating new opportunities.
Because we've been through this drill so many times, I'll just throw out a couple of other things that are just ringing true for me now. There are sometimes things that you're treating as an expense that can be flipped into an income opportunity.
Sure, of course.
Right? There's space that could be subletted out, that someone's given up their lease, but they would take a small piece of yours, right? Are there opportunities to flip the narrative on this expense and get income from it?
Well, one of the brilliant. Thank you for saying that. I think that for me, the first thing you do is go look at your personal expenses, because what a lot of us, again, we're talking about a small business or independently owned businesses. The first thing that you would want to do is go see if you can reduce the expense of your lifestyle. That would allow you to take less money out. Because a lot of people base the money they have to make in their business on the lifestyle that they've created for themselves. And so they think that the income is an absolute out of the business, and you're going, well, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe there are things you can cut in your personal life and make the sacrifice there, so you don't kill the golden goose that's going to lay lots of golden eggs for you over time.
And that goes back to episode 1. One thing you can be certain of is you can make a decision about what you're willing to do. And maybe you're not willing to move into a smaller place to reduce your expenses, or start riding a bike to work, or whatever it is that you have to do, but that's a choice that you have to make. Okay, so the other thing I was thinking about, and I've heard you say this to entrepreneurs, they go through and they do this, the first month, they're looking at it, they go through, they do this expense management exercise, and you've compared it to stretching, right?
Yeah.
So the first time you bend over and touch your toes, you're 4 inches away. And the next time you give it a little rest and then you go again, now you get a little closer. And if you just go back to the well each month, and you're looking with new eyes, right, about this new market, about how do I get my expenses to match my income and where my income's going, you're going to discover new things every month.
Yeah, I think the rule of that's perfect. I think the rule of thumb is cut everything that you think you can, and then next month cut again, and the next month cut again, and the next month cut again. And you will discover things that you thought you couldn't cut, you discover you could cut.
Right. And if we engage our people right, they'll point out what they're not using and could be cut, or what they're not using and should be put to good use.
Yeah.
But you've got to engage them and reward the kind of culture that it points out, hey boss, we can cut this.
Yeah, cost cutting is really hard. You have a lot of darlings in there. You got a lot of things in there that you may have always wanted to do, or that you believe you should do, that just aren't panning out, and you're going to have to be tough. Your business is a living thing, and you need to help it survive.
There you go. And that's your duty to your people as well.
It's absolutely. That's right. Well, you have a second math problem, and that's your formula for success. Right.
All right. So let's unpack that. What does that mean? Formulas for success.
Well, the path is in the math is a truth in life. So your business has a math formula that says we do these things that causes these things, which causes these things, which causes these things to all happen. And in the end, that's how we end up making money.
Right. So like for a web business, I'm going to create this much traffic. This much traffic will sign up for my product. This many people will then buy it, and this many people will keep it over this. Like, I can now create like an economic model, right? Which is what we use sometimes for kind of this ideal state of my business, how I get leads and how often they convert.
Yeah, you have points of truth where numbers matter. The first thing is you need to just recognize that the challenge of a recession is you have less clients.
Yeah.
So that's point number one. You just need to realize that's what's causing your math challenge. You have less clients. Now, lay out your formula. Number two is run your math formula so you can understand your numbers and where your challenges are. In the real estate space, it's kind of we generate leads, which generates appointments, which generates to appointments kept, which generates agreements, which generates closed contracts. So you have these moments of truth. And when you have a market shift, all of a sudden, agreements signed turn into less contracts closed because people start breaking their agreements.
That's right.
Getting out of them. So all of a sudden that number's broken. It's not that you don't have the same number you used to count upon. And people set appointments, but in a shift, they keep less of them. So all of a sudden you're setting appointments, but people are showing up less, and then they're creating less agreements, but then they're breaking more of them.
Well, I think that's you're getting to. We don't want to assume that anybody is just going to go there automatically. It's not as simple math as people think. There's they multiply. So you might have fewer clients, and if fewer clients are actually buying, or they're buying less when they do, like each of those adds up to having even less income.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to figure out, based on this, now what's the income I could actually expect before I change something?
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you have supply chains, you're going to have to go back and look at your formula for how the product that you're either manufacturing or purchasing ultimately finds its way into your business for you to turn around and sell it. And those numbers could all be changing too, right? You just have to go through your formula. You know your math. Here are my moments of truth, and there are numbers attached to each of them. We have to have X number here to generate X number there to generate X number there, which turns into a sale, a purchase, or whatever it is. Okay.
Love it. Okay, so
Yeah,
we've
it's a
done
transaction. Yeah. So you got to run your math formula. So you have to recognize that your issue is there are less buyers in the marketplace. That's what a recession is.
Right.
And number two, you have to run your math formula. You have to go look at your moments of truth in your business. And then you have to look at the numbers that you expect in each one of those in order to get to the number of transactions you need closed. Then given that turns into your income, which then you've already managed your expenses, which gives you your profit or loss, right?
You got it.
Yeah. Number three is you have to identify the one number that you need to focus on, right? We wrote a book on this, right?
What's your one thing?
Yeah, about focusing. And this really matters here, right? In the real estate space, we understand that in the end, there are two issues. One is the very top of the funnel, meaning you're going to have to talk to more people or generate more conversations online or offline. And then number two, you're going to have to learn perspective and conversations that help you on your conversions all the way now through to the end where there's a transaction or not.
In a product industry, they would have another element in there, and that would be like their cost of goods. And so they could look up, and I guess this could be in service if you have like a sales commissions involved. Is there a way for me to lower my cost on the items or services I'm selling such that I can get a little bit more profit out of it if there's less going around?
Sure.
Where's the opportunity here?
Well, sure. And by the way, what if the sources that you generate your leads from, possibly a social media campaign,
right?
And all of a sudden they're having less ads, so they change their price for ads, which changes your math for that number,
right?
Or it could be changed in your favor right now. If you were out in traditional media, like TV, for instance, you might discover that math has improved dramatically. So you're going to have to go through your formula, look at everything, and then ultimately determine what's the number, what's the area that if I nail that number, all the rest of this gets in alignment.
Right. Despite the market, I'm going to make my stand on, I'm just going to start with more traffic, more people coming into my store,
Sure.
more people visiting my website, more conversations with potential clients, whatever that looks like, I'm going to make that my stand. Now, what do I do?
Well, and the number we know you're going to have to do that. What we don't know is that the most crucial number, because you could get more, but if all the other numbers don't change in your favor or at least be acceptable, that number still won't work.
Got it.
It won't deliver you the final amount of income on versus based on number of transactions that would then minus your expenses give you a net income.
I wasn't assuming the top of the funnel was it, but I was just saying if that was it,
yeah.
What do I do now that I've identified the thing that I want to make my stand around? Like, this is where I'm going to go first. I need to change this in my math so that my math starts to work in this market.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the next episode, we're going to talk about lead gen specifically and strategies around that. So number 4 is, now that you've identified this, you're going to have to just brainstorm and research solutions, right?
Yeah.
How do we change that number? Yeah. And then number 5 is pick your best option and go.
Good.
I mean, it's just kind of that simple. The other challenge that you have, in addition to a math challenge, is you have a model challenge.
Is that a bigger challenge?
Well, that's a great question. I hadn't really contemplated which one was more important than the other. I think that they both exist, and you can't ignore either one.
Well, the math comes out of your model, but it might be that we have to change our model for doing business altogether.
Yeah, well, and you're right, that if you have to change your model, you're going to have to go back and revisit the whole conversation we just had all over again.
Yeah.
Because it will bring different numbers with it. No question. And the model change may be the way that you actually change your numbers.
Yeah. So they go like maybe it's a chicken and egg conversation right now. It might be that the math leads you to a model question or the model leads you to a math question, but you got to ask both.
Well, here's what happens. When there are less, your competitors, large or small, are going to ask the question, how do we get our unfair share of eyeballs or clients?
Right.
And the way they're going to do it is they're either going to offer a new product or they're going to offer an improved product over what the market is currently offering. They're going to use something as a means to capture their unfair share of clients.
So we're really looking at our business for its gaps and flaws. Where does my competitor have a foothold where they could take my customers from me because they delivered something in a better way, in a different way, a cheaper way?
Yeah. So let's jump into this.
Okay.
So I think there are 6 kind of simple steps to kind of think this through, Jay. I think the first one, which you just alluded to, which is natural, which is go study your competition, go benchmark and trend it, go look at your competition, go look at other industries. I know for me that when the market collapsed in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, I had to reinvent the business. My solution did not come from the real estate industry. The solution I came up with came from another place completely. And I took that idea, kind of reinvented it for our industry and attached it. And, the very next year, we were the largest in our city. The year after that, we sold more transactions, had more transactions than anyone in the city.
Okay, well then let's I want to make sure because I look up and you say go study the competition. Really, you're looking up and you're looking even beyond the competition. Who else has faced similar challenges? So you might be borrowing innovation from another industry.
Of course, it's
proven there, but no one's even thought to use it where you are.
Exactly. Go study your competition, but honestly, your best ideas most likely are going to be go study other industries and ask the question, are they doing something that I could bring back to my industry, to my product or service, that if I somehow re-engineer to bring that into my business, that by the way would either improve the product that I have or offer a new product that immediately people looked up and said, well, if I'm going to spend money on something, I'm going to choose that one.
Right. Well, you mentioned in the last episode about reading Behind the Golden Arches. And there it is. The only thing you had in common with McDonald's was that you were a franchise company. It wasn't about but they had a solution for French fries that you were able to apply. So boom, it does work. And so here, I want to go back to the last episode.
But let me just say this. Hold your thought. I found all those solutions in books. 9 out of 10 times, books have always been my source of innovation because there are biographies, there are autobiographies, there are research books, there are books that tear apart companies like Behind the Golden Arches that examine all of that, right? Yeah.
And they just lay it out for you.
And they lay it out for you. That's exactly right. So heading to the bookstore or going online, but heading to the bookstore and saying, what are the 10 books or 20 books that I could peruse that my answer might be there, is a beautiful place to start.
Love that. Well, this is actually even better. We hesitated to jump in. I was thinking about this evergreen mindset, and you've done a really good job of living that. I don't think that you ever stop benchmarking and trending.
No.
You're always reading and looking for who has an idea worth borrowing, who has an idea worth adapting, how should my model be evolving? Yeah. And this idea that this is something that we do right now, I think that if we're smart, we'll adapt an evergreen mindset around it.
Yeah.
And on a regular basis, it takes energy to do this, but on a regular basis, ask the question, how do we do this better?
Yeah.
Who's doing it better than us?
Yeah. So number one, go study your competition in other industries. Number two, decide if you need something new or you need to improve something. One of the two.
Got it.
Number three, think moats.
Think moats, like moat around a castle.
Yeah, think moats. And I'll give you 3 things to think about. When a market shifts, you have 3 vulnerabilities that you might want to just think about, Jay. And the first one is your brand, right?
Got it.
Meaning that in a market, someone's going to emerge with and from left field brand. They've come up with something new and they've branded it, and it
feels fresh. It feels new. Makes you look not fresh and new.
Yeah. And by the way, that's right. So think about your brand. Do I need to refresh it? Do I need to kind of renew it? Do I need to reinforce it? Do I need to reinvent it? How's my brand going to feel against new competition? And that's a big deal, not a little deal.
I was reading a case study in a book, and it was about Sears. And in its heyday, it was like one of the largest companies in the world. And they hit an inflection point where, because they moved into malls, they created their own competition. Now, like, they were known as this place where you could go and get all these different things. But now I could go, instead of looking in the shoe department in Sears, there were 3 shoe outlets in the mall.
Yeah, that's right.
And they unintentionally fell prey to creating their own retail competition.
Yeah.
But during their heyday, they started offering financial services. And they actually created a credit card. They had their Sears card. They did Discover. They had, I think it was Dean Witter. And when you look at their balance sheet, huge success in all of those other industries, while their brand, Sears, was falling apart.
Suffering.
What they did, this is not what we should do, is they got so caught up in what they believed their brand was, not what it should be, that instead of letting Sears become known as the company that started as a department store but became a financial services, they sold off those.
Yeah.
And then, they eventually went bankrupt.
They did, yeah.
So they don't get so attached to this identity of who you were versus who you should be, is what I'm wanting to say.
Amen. And I'm not suggesting that from a branding standpoint that you change the name or anything. You could do what we did in a shift. There was years ago, we changed our branding from Keller Williams to KW.
Right.
And we began to emphasize the KW. No different than Kentucky Fried Chicken went to KFC.
Federal Express became FedEx.
That's right. So they're right, or you keep your name, but you attach a tagline to it. You change the tagline, the positioning statement, right? For us, it's where entrepreneurs thrive.
There you go.
Which for us really encapsulates what we've been about all along as a real estate business, right? But understand that just in a statement like that, you position yourself and you challenge everyone else, because no one else is going to use the words entrepreneurs and thrive. You now own those.
That's right.
So whether that's right or wrong, history will judge us. But the point is that you don't have to change your brand name. There are other things you can do around that. So just realize the first thing someone's going to do is they're going to challenge the way your brand is perceived in the market. Number 2, you need to connect deeper with your database, your client base, because what they're going to do is they're going to rebrand. They're going to come in and brand something, right? And then they're going to go right. They're going to take it and aim it right at your client base.
Well, I'm going to go back to the evergreen thing again. I certainly hope that you've had an evergreen mindset if you're listening to this and you know who your clients are, right? And it's shocking to me to go into places I frequent all the time. I spend a huge percentage of whatever that income is dedicated to donuts or diamonds, whatever that is. But they should know me. Oh, that's the guy that gets this.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity to evergreen. Like, if you don't know who your clients are, it's time to get to know them so that they feel like they're walking into Cheers. Hey, Norm, this is your stool. And there's a kind of loyalty that comes from that.
Yeah. Most small businesses don't do a great job of that. You know, when COVID hit and we had that period where business really changed, I didn't hear from anybody. right? I didn't get the phone call from the grocery store that we went to. Hey, we know these are tough times. Blah blah blah.
Can we bring your groceries to you? We know what you like.
Yeah, the restaurants that we had favorited, not one of them called up and said, "Hey, we know this is hard times, right? But we have a delivery service right now. You can come and pick it up at the curb, or we can bring it to your house. We know that times are tough, so here's our pricing for our COVID pricing. Blah 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 blah." Right. That reminds me of the movie Mr. Mom. Remember that with Michael Keaton?
Michael Keaton. Yeah.
Yeah. And Terry Garr.
Yes.
Yeah. And the whole point of there are a lot of themes in that movie, but the point I bring it up is that there was a tuna company called Schooner Tuna.
That's right.
And all of a sudden there were economic hardship that showed up.
Right.
And the movie ends with Terry Garr coming up with the marketing solution for them. And there's an ad where at the end of the movie, Dabney Coleman goes on the TV and says, "These are really tough times, and we at Schooner Tuna understand. So we're going to be reducing our price to help families be able to put food on the table. And when this crisis is over, we'll be going back to our, excellent pricing, whatever he called it something, right? Schooner with a heart." And I never forgot it, but that is exactly what we're talking about here.
Well, they adjusted what their brand meant to their customers to increase that customer loyalty. You made me think of a story that you told me, and I can't remember. There was a famous commercial where a guy's in a boardroom with all of his key executives. Oh, yeah. And at the ends of it, right, he hands out plane tickets.
That's right.
And he's like, "I'm going to see our number one customer.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to go get face to face, because right now is when those connections matter more than anything else."
That's a beautiful example. That's exactly right. Yeah. He passed out all those airline tickets, and then someone in the room says, "Where are you going?" And he holds up a ticket and says, "I'm going to go see our most important client."
There you go.
Yeah. I just think that, again, if you think about kind of in your head the sequence of events that play out in the market in a shift, it can play out anytime, but in a shift, it's coming. And that is somebody is going to bring a new brand or a reimagined brand aimed right at your client base or your database. And they're going to offer, number 3, they're going to offer a client experience promise that's different.
Yeah.
So you have a decision to make. You can sit back and play defense, Jay. We talked about that in episode 1. Or you can play offense. And that is immediately go through your check, right? You have a model challenge, and you're literally going to look at your moat, and you're going to say, how's my brand received? How am I in relationship with my database, my client base? And what's our consumer or customer experience promise, either spoken or unspoken, between us and our client, that we need to re-examine?
Well, the thing is, this new incumbent comes in. They're not anchored by your old business model, by your expenses, or any of the status quo that currently exists in your building, right?
Yeah.
And the example that comes to mind was in 2011, the Dollar Shave Club shows up right in the heart of the Great Recession.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they were going after the Gillettes, the big, the razor brands. They basically rebranded them all as greedy, right? They were charging way too much for an experience you didn't need. So now they're going to deliver for $1 a month the thing that you were paying $12 for.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it was not only they were actively attacking those old brands that had kind of a monopoly over that experience. You chose from like 3 different brands, and they were all expensive, and they'd all kind of agreed that. Now you have this new player.
Yeah.
And boom, it's cheaper, and the experience different. I don't go to the store. Now I order them, and they just show up every month.
Did you go to a Dollar Shave store?
No.
I did. Yeah.
They have an actual retail store now.
Yeah, well, no. This is way back when they launched. I don't know if they have them or not. But in New York City, my brother-in-law and son and I are walking down the street, and there they are.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, we went in. And by the way, what are they doing? They're shaving guys.
Okay.
Right, and they're not charging for it.
Well, that's a great example. I know in that probably the same neighborhood, there's an Allbirds store. There was like a Casper mattress store. So these brands that started out with a new experience is we're going to send it to you in the mail.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the only way to get it.
That's
but
right.
we'll guarantee it and you can send it back.
That's right.
They got enough of a foothold that then they start competing directly.
That's right.
You've got a store, I'm going to get one across the street, but we'll have a different experience.
That's it. Yeah. So just think moats and see it as a way to reinforce what you have.
Yes.
So that it's hard for them to cross the water into the castle, if you will. Right. Number 4 is narrow your focus to where you can win. And I think where you can win is a big idea that you need to just kind of vegetate on. Don't go after something that you can't win at.
Well, that's back to Sears and Roebuck. They had unintentionally created an atmosphere where the win, the big long-term win, was no longer in their retail stores.
Yeah.
And what an existential question. They had another option, though. They just chose not to take it.
Yeah. And, I've stumbled over the years. I've stumbled badly a couple of times where I went after something believing that was an experience or a product or a service that we needed to offer, only to discover later that there was no way we could win at it, Jay.
Oof.
There just wasn't. I won't go into the details of all that, but you're just not going to win. And man, when that happens, you need to admit it and get out.
Well, that's kind of the theme of this whole season. Like, once you realize that something's not working, you just got to go right at it. The cost of denial is incredibly costly. Like, it can actually put you out of business if you don't.
Oh, amen to that. Yes. So just narrow your focus and make sure that whatever you ultimately decide, you can win with your client base on that thing.
You got it.
Yeah. Number 5 is set the path forward, meaning goals, plans, actions, accountability around results. Just set a path forward. And number 6, rally and build the team around it, right?
Well, now with the team, like, they're reading the same news as you are. If you remember from last episode, you made a decision to be positive and see possibilities, right?
Yeah.
When you rally the team, you're saying, we have a path forward.
Yes.
This is our opportunity. Let's go seize it together. Yeah. And I just want to bring that positivity back, because even if you now are rejuvenated, you see something you can win at, rallying the team so that they know it too is really important, because the other person that you could lose is not your customer, it's your key people. If they lose faith that you have a path forward, when they start jumping ship, the sharks come in.
Yeah. So wrapping this up, when a shift happened, when a recession happens, you've got an M&M problem. You've got a math challenge, and you've got a model challenge, and you have to address those head on as fast as you can.
And I mean, we talk about this, and you don't want to be trite in really tough times, but there is a gift in this.
There is.
And we always look back, because I've now been through a couple of them with you, and you've been through a lot of them.
Yeah.
The kind of business fitness routine, right? It's like a Rocky scene where you're training for the big fight. You're actually getting great shape. Your model is rejuvenated. You've sharpened the edge so you can go out and take more territory. Your P&L is lean again. And there's real benefits to this. Even if the recession doesn't go as badly, you don't ever regret going through this, even if it's painful when you do.
Yeah.
Because it made you stronger.
Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is what they say, right?
Yeah. That's why we have to be kind of careful saying the gift of shift, because it doesn't feel like one when you're given it.
Well, just go be stronger.
Hey, did you enjoy that content? You should really check out some of this other stuff that we have to share. And if you like all of this, make sure that you click our subscribe and follow our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single thing.